6 weeks before my wedding. My mother called while I was coordinating emergency stock for 3 supermarket distribution centers outside Seattle. She did not ask if I was safe or if my wedding preparations were finished. She simply said, "Your wedding can wait. Your sister's brand launch is more important right now." Before I could respond, my husband-to-be, Daniel, took the phone. "Your wedding is just a party," he said, his voice flat, cold, and entirely devoid of warmth. "Don't be selfish." For 5 years, those words would have broken me. I would have apologized, rearranged my entire life, and pretended it was my decision. This time, I stared at the glowing logistics map on my computer screen and felt something inside me freeze into complete silence. To understand how I reached this point of no return, we have to go back to where the silence first began. My name is Chloe Miller. I am 29 years old, and I work as a supply chain logistics manager for a major retail chain in Seattle. Every single day, I sit in front of 3 glowing monitors, tracking thousands of freight trucks, predicting delivery delays through mountain snowstorms, and resolving high-stakes inventory crises. When a blizzard hits the pass, I reroute 10-ton rigs through frozen backroads at 3 in the morning. When a warehouse system crashes, I negotiate access with hostile suppliers in under 10 minutes. In my professional world, clarity is survival. People state what they need: water, medicine, fuel, shelter. Nobody disguises demands as love. Nobody calls cold neglect a family tradition. Yet, step inside my own home, and that authority evaporates into thin air. My husband, Daniel Vance, works as a commercial real estate broker. On paper, we are a successful young couple living in a bright, modern apartment in downtown Seattle. But behind our closed heavy oak door, the air smells of stale coffee and unsaid grievances. For the past 4 days, the apartment has been wrapped in a suffocating, icy silence. Daniel walks past me in the hallway without making eye contact. He sets his coffee mug on the counter with a sharp clack, his jaw tight, his shoulders rigid. He is using his favorite weapon, the silent treatment. The crime that earned me this punishment was simple. I refused to hand over $5,000 from my personal savings account to his younger sister, Amber. In the Vance family hierarchy, Amber is the golden child. At 24, she calls herself a lifestyle influencer. She lives in a world of pastel filters, sponsored skincare creams, and staged perfection. Amber is described by her mother as sensitive, gifted, ambitious, and destined for extraordinary things. I, on the other hand, am described as dependable. Over time, I learned what my family-in-law really means by dependable. It means I can be disappointed without causing trouble. It means I can pay for my own college tuition, while my mother-in-law, Evelyn, funds Amber's private design courses. It means I can spend Christmas morning fixing a leaking pipe in Evelyn's basement, while Amber films sponsored holiday content upstairs. Whenever I try to set a boundary, Evelyn steps in with her polished, weaponized empathy. She sits across from me, smells faintly of lavender perfume and expensive lotion, and tilts her head with a sad, disappointed smile. "Chloe, dear, you are the strong one," she would say softly, tapping my wrist. "You are so capable and grounded. Amber is fragile. She needs room to build her future. Don't be so rigid. Families share everything." Apparently, my future has always been strong enough to survive without help. To survive the emotional noise of the Vance family, I retreat into the kitchen. Cooking is where my logistics mind finds peace. I slice sharp yellow onions on a wooden board, the crisp thump, thump, thump of the knife echoing off the subway tiles. I sear chicken in a hot cast-iron skillet, listening to the sharp hiss of oil and catching the rich, savory smell of garlic and rosemary filling the air. I was standing at the stove, stirring a simmering tomato sauce, when Daniel finally broke his 4-day silence. He walked into the kitchen, his leather shoes clicking loudly on the hardwood floor. He did not ask how my day was. He did not look at the dinner I was preparing. He tossed a glossy brochure onto the marble island. "Cancel the waterfront venue for our anniversary," Daniel said, his voice clipped and flat. I stopped stirring. The wooden spoon hovered above the red sauce. "What did you just say?" "Amber is launching her new personal brand," Daniel explained, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed over his chest. "She found a major sponsor, but they require a live launch event on the 3rd Saturday of next month. That's the same day as our 5th anniversary party." My throat tightened. "Daniel, I spent 2 years saving my personal performance bonuses for that reservation. I paid the non-refundable deposit. The invitations are already printed. And Amber needs that exact venue," Daniel replied, his eyes cold and unbothered. "She needs the glass pavilion overlooking Puget Sound. It fits her brand aesthetic. My mother already spoke to the event coordinator. You work in retail logistics, Chloe. You plan events and move inventory all the time. You can host our anniversary dinner anywhere, a backyard barbecue, a local bistro, or just postpone it 6 months. Postpone our 5th anniversary." I whispered. The steam from the pan rose up, stinging my eyes, but I refused to let a single tear drop. "Amber's launch involves real investors," Daniel snapped, his tone sharp and patronizing. "It creates actual business value for the family. Our anniversary is just a private party. Stop being so territorial. My mother is right about you. The moment you are asked to compromise for this family, you turn everything into a battle." He turned on his heel and walked into his home office, shutting the heavy door behind him with a firm, decisive click. Seconds later, the muffled sound of laughing voices from Amber's latest video echoed through the thin drywall. I stood alone in the bright, spotless kitchen. The chicken sizzled in the skillet. The garlic began to burn, filling the air with a bitter, acrid scent. I dropped the wooden spoon into the sink. For 5 years, I had moved my chair, so Amber could occupy the center of every room. I had absorbed Daniel's icy silences, swallowed Evelyn's subtle insults, and paid for their family emergencies while they treated me like a convenience. I looked at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. I did not see a victim weeping in the dark. I saw a professional logistics manager facing a major system failure. When a supply line breaks, you do not beg the broken parts to work. You document the damage, secure your assets, and reroute the entire operation. I walked over to my desk, opened my personal laptop, and created a new, encrypted folder on my desktop. I named it Vance_interference_log. I sat down in the quiet room, the cool glow of the screen illuminating my face, and typed the very first timestamp. My heart was no longer racing. The tears were gone. Something inside me had become completely, irreversibly still. By 6 a.m., the next morning, the apartment was quiet. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, casting long, sharp shadows across the hardwood floor. Daniel was still asleep, his breathing heavy behind the closed bedroom door. I did not waste time weeping or waiting for an apology. A crisis manager does not wait for a collapsing bridge to repair itself. She secures the perimeter. My first target was financial independence. I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop, the cool aluminum casing resting against my palms. I logged into our joint checking account. Over the last 3 years, my salary had quietly funded 70% of our household expenses. Daniel's commission checks arrived unpredictably, often spent immediately on tailored suits, expensive dinners with prospective clients, and Amber's endless online projects. My fingers moved across the keyboard with steady precision. Click, click, enter. I opened a new, individual checking account at a completely different national bank, one where the Vance family had zero connections. I transferred my entire personal savings, along with my latest performance bonus, out of the joint account. Next, I updated my company's payroll portal, routing my future paychecks directly into my new private account. Finally, I unlinked my secondary credit card from Daniel's mobile wallet. When the confirmation screen flashed green, a physical weight lifted from my chest. For the first time in 5 years, my money belonged solely to me. At 8:30 a.m., my phone vibrated on the marble counter. The caller ID read, Puget Soundglass Pavilion. It was the waterfront venue I had booked for our 5th anniversary. "Good morning, Sarah," I said, keeping my voice smooth, polite, and professional. "Is everything all right with my reservation?" "Hi, Chloe," Sarah replied, her tone hesitant and slightly confused. "I'm calling to double-check the adjustments requested on your account this morning. A woman named Evelyn Vance called our office at 8 o'clock. She identified herself as your mother-in-law and the official family event coordinator. She stated that you were overwhelmed with work and requested to transfer your venue contract, date, and deposit over to Amber Vance's brand launch." My blood ran cold, but I did not let my voice shake. "Did she offer a written authorization from me?" "She claimed you approved it verbally," Sarah said. "She also asked to downgrade your custom floral arrangement to a simple greenery package to save costs. They were not just trying to take my date. They were trying to erase my presence entirely." "Sarah, listen to me carefully," I said, my words deliberate and sharp. "I did not authorize any changes. Evelyn Vance has zero legal authority over my account or my personal funds." "I understand, Chloe, but she sounded very convincing, and she knew all your event details." "Effective immediately," I instructed, "I want a 6-digit security passcode placed on my venue file. No changes, no inquiries, and no cancellations are to be processed without my personal passcode and written consent. If Evelyn Vance or anyone else calls again, record the timestamp and forward the audio log directly to my email." "Consider it done," Sarah confirmed. Hungry for more information, I logged into my personal cloud drive. 2 weeks ago, I shared a digital folder with my sister-in-law containing my preliminary design sketches for the anniversary party: white orchids, suspended fairy lights, and gold-accented table settings. I opened Amber's public social media draft board, which she had accidentally left linked to a shared design app. My jaw tightened. There it was. Amber had copied my exact design layout word for word, item for item. She had submitted my original vision to her own hired event designer, scheduling her brand showcase for the week right before my date. She intended to present my aesthetic online first, making my actual anniversary look like a cheap copy. I did not scream. I did not smash my phone. I took sharp, high-resolution screenshots of every stolen design board, every email timestamp from the venue, and every audio file Sarah forwarded to me. I saved every single file into my encrypted folder, Vance_interference_log. By 1 p.m., I sat at my home desk surrounded by printed evidence. The room smelled of fresh ink and cold tea. 17 screenshots, 3 venue emails, 2 audio recordings of Evelyn's smooth, deceptive voice impersonating my representative. My phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel. "My mother says you're causing problems with the venue. Call her and fix this before it gets embarrassing." I looked at the message. I did not reply. A year ago, that text would have sent me into a panic, desperately trying to keep the peace. Today, it was simply item number 18 in my file. I closed my laptop with a soft, quiet snap. The sun was high in the sky now, washing the room in bright, unflinching light. The Vance family believed they were playing a game of emotional chicken, assuming I would swerve at the last second, as I always did. They did not realize that I was no longer playing. I was documenting a crime scene. I placed my hands flat on the desk, feeling the solid wood beneath my fingers. My heart rate was slow and steady. My mind was completely clear. I was no longer the dutiful daughter-in-law waiting to be chosen. I was a strategist preparing for impact. Instead of spending my evenings stewing in resentment, I invested my energy into relentless self-improvement. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, after finishing my shift at the retail distribution center, I attended advanced professional courses. I sat in quiet, brightly lit lecture halls, learning the complexities of commercial contract law and advanced supply chain management. The crisp scent of dry erase markers and fresh printer paper filled the air. My mind, once consumed by domestic squabbles, sharpened with every legal clause and logistical framework I mastered. At work, I put my new knowledge into immediate action. I developed an innovative freight routing protocol designed to bypass winter storm bottlenecks across the Pacific Northwest. I presented the data-driven plan to senior executives, my voice steady, my delivery precise. The proposal was approved on the spot, cutting regional transit costs by 20%. My professional breakthrough brought me into the orbit of Pulse Dynamics, a premier technology and logistics corporation. In a high-level strategic conference, I met Marcus Cole. Marcus was 36, tall, and quiet, with sharp gray eyes and a calm, deliberate presence. He wore a simple charcoal suit, completely devoid of flashy brand logos. Unlike Daniel, who used loud words and tailored clothes to project authority, Marcus radiated quiet competence. Years ago, Marcus had lost a close family member due to a severe emergency medical supply failure. That tragedy drove him to build Pulse Dynamics into an industry powerhouse. He valued real-world execution over corporate jargon. During our 3-hour strategy meeting, Marcus listened intently as I broke down local inventory distribution challenges. When I pointed out a critical flaw in their regional warehouse routing, he did not get defensive. He leaned forward, rested his hands on the mahogany table, and studied my data charts. "You see the entire grid, Chloe," Marcus said, his voice deep and measured. "Most people only see their own warehouse floor." By the end of the week, Marcus extended a formal invitation for me to candidate for the regional logistics director position at Pulse Dynamics, an executive role that would double my current income and elevate my career to a national level. Daniel remained completely blind to my transformation. He was too consumed by his own desperate ambitions. For 8 months, his commercial real estate firm had been trying to secure a lucrative brokerage contract with Pulse Dynamics. He spent his evenings at our dining table, obsessing over proposal drafts, his tie loosened, the smell of stale bourbon heavy on his breath. One evening, Daniel bragged to his mother over speakerphone while I sat nearby, reviewing my executive interview materials. "We just resubmitted our pitch to Pulse Dynamics," Daniel boasted, tapping his pen rhythmically against his glass. "If I land this account, it changes everything for us. Their executive team is top tier." Evelyn's voice chirped through the speaker. "That's wonderful, Daniel. A real career step. Not like managing grocery store inventory." Daniel chuckled, glancing at me with a condescending smirk. "Well, someone in this family needs to bring in high-level business. Chloe is busy taking evening night school classes. I told her she's wasting her time. She should be learning how to be a better wife instead of playing student." I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice or offer a defense. I calmly turned the page of my legal contract notebook, the crisp white paper rustling softly in the quiet room. I looked at Daniel. I saw a man who was intellectually and morally tiny, hiding behind a fragile ego and a cheap suit. He was chasing the very man who was currently recruiting me for an executive board position. The irony was absolute, but I felt no desire to brag or enlighten him. The need for his approval had completely evaporated, leaving behind a cold, crystal-clear focus. I closed my notebook, took a slow sip of warm chamomile tea, and smiled silently into the dark window pane. Daniel Vance was racing toward a brick wall, and he was steering the wheel himself. The family meeting was held in the conference room of the local parish center, a space Evelyn had booked under the guise of community event planning. The room smelled of polished wax, stale coffee, and cold air from the overhead vents. Long fluorescent lights hummed loudly, casting a harsh, unforgiving glare over the mahogany table. Evelyn sat at the head, her hands folded over a leather folder. Daniel sat to her right in a sharp navy suit, tapping his silver pen against a notepad. Amber was dressed in cream cashmere, her eyes artfully rimmed in red to simulate tears, her phone resting face down on the table. Beside her sat Mason Cole, her fiancé, looking visibly uncomfortable in a stiff gray blazer. Two of Daniel's senior commercial real estate partners sat near the door, invited under the pretense of witnessing a family business resolution. Evelyn gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Sit down, Chloe. Let us settle this before you damage the family's standing any further." I pulled out the chair and sat down calmly. I did not slouch. I did not place my hands in my lap to hide shaking fingers. My posture was straight, my eyes steady. Daniel leaned forward, his face tight with anger. Amber's brand launch is a crucial business opportunity. Her sponsors provide massive social exposure. It benefits my firm, my mother's event network, and our future standing. Your anniversary party is private. It creates zero broader commercial value. We need you to sign the venue transfer today. I looked directly at him. Did you just rank our marriage anniversary below social media marketing exposure? Don't start with emotional drama, Daniel snapped. It's practical. Evelyn smoothed her silk scarf. Chloe, Amber's sponsors have fixed calendar dates. Your anniversary is flexible. The venue coordinator said you were overwhelmed. We are simply trying to help you simplify your life. I placed a security passcode on that account. Evelyn, I said, my voice cutting through the quiet room like a cold blade. You impersonated me. You attempted to alter a legal contract I paid for with my personal performance bonuses. Evelyn's face flushed pink. I was acting as family coordinator. You were being difficult. You lied, I said simply. Daniel slammed his palm on the table. The sharp crack echoed off the bare walls. Watch your mouth. You are talking to my mother. You've been hostile for weeks, hoarding money, locking accounts, and hiding behind night school classes. You think you're powerful because you're causing a scene. I reached into my leather briefcase. I did not rush. I pulled out a thick, neat stack of printed documents and placed them squarely in the center of the mahogany table. Let us discuss facts, I said. I pushed the first set of papers toward Mason Cole and Daniel's business partners. Exhibit A, I announced, transcripts and audio files of voicemails left by Evelyn Vance. She contacted my vendors, claimed I was having a mental breakdown due to work stress, and tried to redirect my floral installations and guest hotel blocks to Amber's party. Mason picked up the page. His eyes scanned the text, his brow furrowing deeper with every line. Amber reached out to grab his arm, but Mason pulled his wrist away. Exhibit B. I continued, sliding another document across the polished wood. Bank transfer records and receipts. $18,000 lent from my personal savings to Amber Vance over 2 years for her design startup. Amber told Mason and her parents that this money came from family trust funds. She has repaid exactly $2,500. Amber gasped, her face draining of color. That was a family gift. It was an interest-free loan with a signed promissory note. I corrected her coldly. Exhibit C, I said, laying down the final page. A signed petition for dissolution of marriage. Daniel, our marriage is over. The room went dead silent. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Daniel stared at the divorce paper, his mouth slightly open, his silver pen slipping from his fingers and rattling against the wood. Are you insane? Daniel whispered, his voice cracking. You're throwing away our marriage over a venue date. I am ending a marriage that was built on my silence and your exploitation, I replied. Daniel stood up, his face contorting with rage. He gestured wildly toward his business partners. You think this scares me? I don't need your retail salary. My firm is about to sign the largest brokerage deal of the year with Pulse Dynamics. I build real wealth. You move boxes. Before I could speak, the heavy oak door at the back of the room swung open. Marcus Cole walked in. He was dressed in a dark charcoal suit, his presence imposing and absolute. The room's air seemed to shift instantly. Daniel's business partners stood up immediately out of instinct. Daniel's eyes widened in shock as he recognized the man he had been chasing for 8 months. Mr. Cole. Daniel stammered, stepping forward with an awkward, eager smile, extending his hand. We didn't expect you here. This is a private family matter, but if you're here regarding our Pulse Dynamics proposal. Marcus ignored Daniel's outstretched hand completely. He walked past him and stood directly beside my chair, placing a calm, supportive hand on the back of my seat. I am not here for your proposal, Mr. Vance, Marcus said, his voice deep, resonance filling the room. I am here as executive chairman of Pulse Dynamics to escort our newly appointed regional logistics director, Chloe Miller, to our executive board dinner. Daniel froze. His arm hung awkwardly in the air. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her throat. Regional director. Daniel whispered, his eyes darting between Marcus and me. Chloe. Yes, Marcus replied, his gray eyes locking onto Daniel with icy precision. And regarding your firm's proposal to Pulse Dynamics, it has been officially rejected by our compliance department as of 9 o'clock this morning. Daniel turned pale. Rejected? Why? We met all criteria. Your proposal contained fraudulent misrepresentations, Marcus stated calmly. You listed Chloe Miller as a corporate human resources advisor for your firm to inflate your organizational credentials. You used her professional reputation and network without her knowledge or consent. That is a federal contract violation. Daniel stumbled back a step, collapsing into his chair. His 2 business partners looked at him with utter fury, gathered their coats, and walked out of the room without saying a word. You can't do this. Evelyn cried out, her voice trembling. We are a respectable family. You are ruining my son's career over private marital arguments. Marcus looked at Evelyn with quiet disdain. A man who builds his business on deception and exploits his wife's labor is not a risk Pulse Dynamics will ever take. I stood up. I pulled 2 final legal envelopes from my bag and laid them gently on the table in front of Daniel and Evelyn. The first document is a cease and desist order, I said, my voice perfectly level. If you, your mother, or your sister contact my employers, my vendors, or my personal associates again, my legal counsel will immediately file harassment and contract interference charges in civil court. The second document, I added, looking Evelyn dead in the eye, is a legal revocation of all medical power of attorney and HIPAA access. None of you will ever have legal, financial, or medical authority over my life again. Amber was sobbing hysterically into her hands. Mason stood up, looked at Amber with profound disgust, pulled his engagement ring box from his pocket, set it on the table, and walked out the door. Evelyn buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Daniel sat frozen, staring at the floor, his entire life, career, and illusion of control shattered into dust. I picked up my briefcase and smoothed down my coat. I did not feel rage. I did not feel malice. I felt the profound, weightless peace of a woman who had finally stepped out of the shadows. I turned my back on the empty chairs, walked beside Marcus out of the room, and did not look back once. The fallout from the parish center confrontation hit the Vance family like a series of heavy, collapsing walls. The first domino fell before midnight. Mason Cole drove straight from the parish center to his parents' home in Bellevue. He handed them the audio recording of Evelyn and Amber plotting to sabotage my event and lie about my mental state. Mason's family, an old-money Seattle clan deeply focused on reputation, acted instantly. They severed all ties with the Vance family. By morning, Mason sent a brief, formal public statement. I have officially ended my engagement with Amber Vance following disclosures of deliberate deception, fraudulent claims, and malice toward family members. The statement spread across social media like wildfire. Brand sponsors withdrew their contracts one after another. A major national stationery brand publicly canceled their sponsorship deal with Amber, citing an irreconcilable conflict with corporate ethical values. Amber posted a tearful video claiming she was being bullied by jealous relatives, but the comment sections were flooded with screenshots of Mason's statement. Within 48 hours, Amber deactivated her social media channels, hiding in her dark bedroom, while her phone buzzed endlessly with cancellation penalties from sponsors. Daniel's world crumbled just as swiftly. The compliance review at Pulse Dynamics triggered a broader audit by his own real estate firm. Investigators uncovered a pattern of inaccurate representations, unauthorized use of professional affiliations, and shaky financial reporting across Daniel's commercial listings. His senior partners stripped him of his major accounts and demoted him to junior oversight. He lost his corporate car allowance, his quarterly bonuses, and his standing in the Seattle real estate community. His desk was moved from a glass corner office to a windowless cubicle near the supply room, smelling of stale carpet cleaner and toner dust. Evelyn suffered her own quiet humiliation. The annual parish charity gala she had organized for 6 years was suddenly reallocated to a new committee. When she tried to host a smaller dinner at her home to salvage her social standing, setting a long mahogany table for 20 guests, only 4 people showed up. The room was cold, filled with the heavy scent of fading lilies and awkward, hollow silence. Then came the attempts to reopen my door. On a rainy Thursday evening, 3 weeks after the confrontation, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I answered, putting the call on speaker while I organized my new apartment. Chloe. Daniel's voice was hoarse, stripped of all its former arrogance. We need to talk. My mother is sick with worry. My career is falling apart. You've made your point, Chloe. You proved you're strong. Now please, tell Pulse Dynamics to drop the audit. Tell Mason to talk to Amber. I did not cause your audit, Daniel, I said calmly, setting a stack of books on my shelf. Your own fraudulent representations caused it. I simply stopped covering for you. We're family, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Families forgive each other. You're being cold. You're acting like a stranger. Forgiveness is for my peace. Daniel, I replied, my voice smooth and firm as marble. It is not your access pass back into my life. I hung up the phone and blocked his number. 2 days later, Evelyn arrived at my new apartment building without warning. She waited in the lobby, her polished appearance cracked, dark circles heavy beneath her eyes. She clutched her leather handbag to her chest like a shield. When I stepped off the elevator, she rushed forward, her hands trembling. Chloe, please, look at what is happening to us. Amber won't leave her room. Daniel is facing financial ruin. I know I made mistakes. I thought you understood that Amber needed more help because she was fragile. I stood 2 paces away from her. The lobby smelled of rain and fresh eucalyptus. "You did not treat me like I was strong, Evelyn," I said quietly. "You treated me like I was invisible. You assumed I would absorb every insult, pay every debt, and yield every joy because I didn't cause scenes." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She reached out to touch my arm. "I am your mother-in-law. Can you really be this cruel? Can you really exclude us from your life forever?" I stepped back, letting her hand fall into the cold air between us. "I am not being cruel," I said softly. "I am being clear. Reconciliation requires accountability and changed behavior. You are only sorry because you lost your audience and your funding." I turned toward the glass doors. Outside, the rain drummed steadily against the pavement. Daniel stood across the street under a black umbrella, looking up at my building. He looked smaller, his shoulders sloped, his sharp suit soaked at the hem. I did not glare at him. I felt no urge to scream or demand an apology. I pulled my coat tighter around my shoulders, walked past Evelyn, and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, sealing me in quiet warmth, I watched Evelyn standing alone in the lobby, surrounded by marble floors and empty chairs. I pulled the curtain shut in my mind. I was no longer holding the door open for people who only entered my life to tear it down. 6 months after the confrontation at the Parish Center, the Puget Sound waterfront washed in the warm, golden glow of a late summer afternoon. The air was crisp and fresh, smelling of salt water, pine needles, and sun-warmed cedar. Seagulls circled high above, their calls echoing softly over the gentle, rhythmic lap of waves against the wooden pilings of the restored ferry terminal. I stood near the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, looking out toward the endless blue horizon. The setting sun cast a brilliant amber light across the water, painting the sky in deep shades of rose and gold. It was the golden hour. This location was not chosen for social media reach or brand exposure. We selected this old ferry terminal because its historical purpose was movement, carrying people safely from one shore to another. It felt right. It felt honest. My celebration was not a quiet, defeated compromise, nor was it a performative spectacle. It was my independence and milestone gathering. We had reduced the guest list from 160 down to 34 people. There were no cameras filming for online clout, no sponsored floral arches, no corporate guests brought in for networking. The room held only real friends, trusted colleagues from Pulse Dynamics, and people who had loved me without requiring me to disappear first. The space did not feel empty. It felt honest, light, and full of genuine warmth. My outfit was simple, a tailored white silk suit that caught the warm evening light. No heavy laces, no restrictive corsets, no elaborate veil designed for an audience. I dressed for myself. My aunt helped me button my jacket. Coworkers brought hot coffee in paper cups, their laughter filling the room. The local florist had built a simple, stunning installation using native cedar branches, white anemones, and storm-fallen maple leaves collected near my new apartment. Nothing belonged to Amber's canceled event. Nothing was borrowed from a life of sacrifice. I had achieved a profound mindset shift over these 6 months. I no longer saw myself as a victim of my family's neglect. I stopped asking why they had treated me poorly, and I started taking full responsibility for my own happiness. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come. I understood that setting boundaries was not an act of cruelty against others. It was an act of survival for myself. My daily actions reflected that transformation. Every morning began with physical movement, yoga on my sunlit balcony, long runs along the coastal path, and quiet meditation. I took control of my personal finances, investing my new executive salary into a private portfolio and purchasing my own bright, high-rise apartment overlooking the bay. I attended advanced leadership seminars, refined my professional skills, and took pride in my work as Regional Logistics Director at Pulse Dynamics. When the string quartet began to play a soft, steady melody, I walked down the aisle toward the glass windows overlooking the water. I walked alone. I did not walk alone because nobody loved me enough to accompany me. I walked alone because I wanted those first steps into my new life to belong entirely to me. I was no longer moving my chair so someone else could take the center of the room. I was stepping into a space I had built with my own hands. Marcus stood near the windows, dressed in a simple dark suit. He did not look like a corporate tycoon or the executive whose name had terrified Daniel. He looked like the man who had sat across from me in a quiet conference room, studied my logistics charts, and respected my mind before asking what I wanted. He did not offer me grand, dramatic promises of rescue. He stepped forward, handed me a warm cup of spiced tea, and smiled with deep, quiet respect. "To new shores, Chloe," Marcus said softly, his voice steady and warm. "To new shores," I replied, raising my glass. I looked out through the glass panels at the golden light stretching across the Puget Sound. I felt no lingering anger toward Daniel. I felt no bitterness toward Evelyn or Amber. Rage requires energy, and I was no longer willing to spend my life force on people who had treated my presence as a convenience. I had forgiven them, not to grant them access back into my life, but to free my own heart from their weight. My parents-in-law remained outside my world. They had created a celebration emptied by their own choices, sitting surrounded by empty chairs under copied flowers. I had not sabotaged them. I had simply stopped protecting them from the natural consequences of their own actions. Real strength is not measured by how much pain you can carry without complaining. Real strength is knowing when to put the heavy weight down. Useful education does not come only from textbooks or corporate boardrooms. Some of the most vital knowledge comes from recognizing toxic patterns, drawing firm boundaries, and understanding that love without respect is merely control. I took a deep breath of the fresh sea air. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky filled with quiet, radiant light. I was free, self-reliant, and fiercely proud of the woman I had become. I did not need a better seat at their table. I had found the courage to leave it entirely. All shadows must fade before the truth, and every pain is simply the start of a beautiful rebirth. Always remember, the right to write a new chapter of your life is forever in your hands. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below so we know we're walking this journey together. Hope to see you on the next page.